Hello, Garland Nixon here on a Saturday afternoon. And, I'm seeing the decisions that are being made by the Trump administration consistent with the decisions that were made with the Biden administration that is causing the empire to unravel. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. And the first thing I better do is turn my stinking phone down. Those of you who've been listening to this show for a while, people used to say Garland's show hasn't got started until his phone rings in the background. So we're going to try to get that straight. It's been a great morning. Been to the gym this morning, out running around. I got lots to do. But the most important thing I have to do is to talk to you. And it's to talk. I'll put it like this. For those of you who know me and have been following me for a while, the reason I do these shows is because I got something to say. That's it. I got stuff to say. What I usually do is I sit and look at stuff. I look at something that seems to make sense. And then I come up with a premise and I say, I need to talk about that. And I sit down and just start talking and see what comes out. And that's what I'm doing now. What I found interesting, I thought about this, this whole business about the U.S. and the Red Sea. And I'm listening to one of these schmucks. I think it was Hegseth or one of these idiots, right? And they're like, yes, we're going to the Yemen. And Yemen, how was he putting it? It was basically, what he sounded like? He sounded like Wolfowitz and Pearl and those guys talking about shock and awe in 2003, right? We're going to intimidate those little savages, right? It was, yes, we'll go there. The other day, Sana'a, Yemen's capital, was rocking like an earthquake, and they got the message. And if they didn't get it, we'll keep it up until they get the message. All this rah, yada, 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 shock and awe bull crap of the empire, right? Let me start by saying this. You have to understand something about Yemen before we go any further. And that is one of their former leaders who's since died, one of the Al-Houthi guys that they were named after, actually had a sermon. And in that sermon, he predicted that one day that God would bless Yemen to be able to confront the U.S. empire in Israel. That was his sermon. That was his prophecy. Literally, the people of the Houthi, it's a Shia sect, they literally believe that this is part of a prophecy from God. And you think dropping a few bombs around is going to well, it's a prophecy from God, but hey, some bombs dropped. I think we'll stop. I really don't think that's going to work. Number one. Number two, what do they believe? They believe that the highest honor and the greatest blessing that you can get is to martyr yourself in service to God. So put the two together. What is it that deters people? What is it that frightens people, right? Have you probably heard the golden rule, right? The golden rule is this. The old golden rule is, give unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? That's supposedly the golden rule. And then Stephen Covey said something which was interesting in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I've read all the Covey books, a lot of good books from the Franklin Institute, but picked up a lot of great things. But one of the things he said in the Platinum Rule was, no, figure out what other people want and give them what they want. Don't do unto others as they would have, as you would have them do unto you. Don't say, I like chocolate cake, and I wish somebody would give me a chocolate cake, so I'm going to give that guy a chocolate cake. Well, no, they may be allergic to chocolate. What's your favorite cake? Pineapple upside down. I'm giving you a pineapple upside down. Figure out what the other person wants. If you're trying to influence people, don't influence them based on how you think. Figure out how they think and influence them based on what they think. I had a friend that was a lobbyist, a very successful lobbyist, and she used to always say, we're lobbying all the time, Garland. We're always lobbying for people. If somebody asks somebody for a date, they meet a pretty girl or whatever the case, a young lady meets a guy and they're going to lobby them. Hey, this is why, they're going to try to impress them. Hey, I've got a nice car, or I've got a good job, or I'm in college getting an education, right? They're lobbying that person saying, I want to affect your decisions, and the decision I want is to date me, right? Okay. If you're going to affect the Houthis, you got to figure out what they want. You can't say what frightens them. what it is that scares them, if you want to scare them, what it is that impresses them, what would have them do something. You want to influence them to do something differently than they're doing. If you're an idiot, if you're an empire, you don't do that. You say, we're frightened by big explosions because we're afraid to die, because we just want to stay home and Netflix and chill and play with our iPad and blah, blah, blah. So we don't want our Netflix and chill to be screwed up. So a big explosion would scare the bejesus out of us. So let's do that. Ha ha. We rocked their capital. We scared them. Now they getting the message. They ain't getting the message, you freaking idiot. That's not how it works. They ain't trying to Netflix and chill. They ain't got Netflix. They're not interested. You can't bomb their infrastructure. They ain't got much. The Saudis bombed them for 7 years. The Brits, I don't know how long, attacked them for I don't know how long. And they just keep on fighting and plugging away, buddy. And no matter how much you fight, they ain't going to stop fighting. They're just going to smile and say, is that all you got? It's like you see some guy getting a fight. Some guy takes a punch, wham, and he hits the freaking guy with everything he's got. And the guy shakes his head and smiles and say, is that all you got? Bring it on. You better find an end to that fight. If you hit this guy with everything you got, you gave him all your might, you punched him as hard as you can in traditional fighting. I'm not talking about, say, self-defense or martial arts, but in traditional fighting, as we would think it, in a boxing match as it was, and you get a guy with your haymaker, bam, everything you got. He shakes a little bit and he smiles, says, oh, that's all you got? That's the best you could do? Bring it on. Yeah, you better go in the corner and not come out, because that guy you ain't going to hurt him, right? No matter what you hit them with, their answer is going to be the same. What a great blessing from Allah that we can tangle with the U.S. Ha, ha, ha. They're happy that they're fighting you. They're blessed. It's part of their prophecy. And these idiots are still doing shock and awe. That didn't work in Iraq. You bombed away the Iraqi military, and guess what happened? A insurgent army rose up and fought you till they got tired of fighting you. And they turned into ISIS at some point. But at any rate, and other things happen. Bottom line is, you're not punching these people out. You're just going to make them fight harder no matter what you do. So now apparently they're like, we're sending more ships, another carrier group. They'll be scared. Yeah, the Yemenis will be scared. There's another carrier group. They're going to go pray some more and say, thank you, God, you sent us another carrier group for the target. Hooray! They're having some success. They've shot down like 15 or something MQ-9 Reapers that go like $30 million each. My last I heard was $480 million, $500 million. They shot down more MQ-9 Reapers than they got infrastructure in their whole country. And you think you're going to somehow, it's stupidity. So now we got the Trump team doing really stupid stuff. You're going up against the Houthis in Yemen in the Red Sea. And what's your plan to stop them? They've already told you the only thing that'll stop them. Stop killing the Palestinians and starving them and cutting off their water. We'll stop shooting. Other than that, they ain't going to stop shooting. Now, what does Hegseth or whoever this idiot I'm listening to, he says, look, we'll stop when they stop. That ain't a good plan, dude. Not a good plan with the Houthis, because they ain't going to stop. They ain't ever going to stop. I was listening to, was it Lawrence Wilkerson recently, and he was saying that basically even, you're like, and we'll hold Iran responsible. Number one, he was saying, look, the Houthis don't listen to Iran. If Iran offers us some weapons, they'll take them, but they ain't listening to nobody. They're doing God's work. So sorry, if you ain't God, they probably ain't going to listen to you. You can't convince them that you're God. Probably ain't going to get far with the Houthis. They're doing God's work. And people outside of Yemen look at them and say, there's a legal argument to be made. Forget the religious and the moral argument. That's one discussion that we could certainly have, and they could make their case for that. But legally speaking, their legal argument under international law is, hey, look, there's an ongoing genocide, as has been pointed out by the International Criminal Court or International Court of Justice, whatever the hell. I can't keep up with those courts that are usually run by the U.S. anyway, and the West. But so we have a legal duty to do everything we can to stop a genocide. Well, all I'm saying is this, regardless of how you feel about that, there is a legal foundation to their argument. There is a legal foundation to their argument. There's a moral foundation. There's a religious foundation. There's a legal foundation. So any way you look at it, they ain't stopping. What are you going to go? So you're going to bomb Sanaa? They're not stopping. They got a lot of their infrastructure, their military infrastructure is underground. They use mobile launcher systems. They bring them out at night. They move them around. They fire a bunch of them. They hide them again. How are you going to know where they are? They got mountains. They got all kinds of stuff. How are you ever going to figure out what they're doing and how they're doing it? Not going to happen. They can keep doing it. What are you going to do? Drop some bombs in the desert, kill some civilians? You can do that. You can bomb some civilians, and the only thing that does is make you look worse. They celebrate. Nobody's happy that they lost people, but they celebrate that more martyrs have gone to join, their ancestors, and they'll all be blessed as a result of their martyrdom. And every time you bomb them, you know what happens when they bomb them? 1 million people in Yemen come out into the street and hold Palestinian flags and Yemen flags and say, "Hooray! We're winning." You bomb them, their answer is, "Hooray, we're winning." Because we're making you fight. We're winning. We're winning because we're in the fight against the U.S. empire. We're the Houthis, and we are fighting against the most powerful naval force on earth. We're winning. Just because they're fighting you, they think they're winning. So my point being, it's not a smart move by the U.S. to fight Yemen. Even, I have my moral position on it, and I'm sure you do too. Notwithstanding our moral position, just the position of military and geopolitical strategy, you're fighting people who they win from their perspective. Not only do they win by fighting, they get their blessings from God by fighting you. Get the opportunity to fight you is a prophesied blessing from God. Man, that's a fight you don't want. Why is this? Let me say this. So Trump comes in and he says, "I'm going to be the peacemaker." What did he say? Remember this? I keep saying this over and over. Judge me not by the wars, by the wars that I stop and the wars that I don't start. 8 weeks in, 12 weeks, whatever it is. I don't know how many weeks, a bunch of weeks in, not long. Let's see, January 20th, February 20th, March 20th. So a little over 8 weeks right now, right around 8 weeks. And you're starting a war that you can't get out of. See, that's the next thing. The United States empire, one of the things that empires do when they fall is these very foolish military adventures. They get in a fight over here, over there. We're going to bring the Russians down in Ukraine. Oh, we're going to stand up and we're going to take Iran down and all of the opposition to Israel in the Middle East. Oh, by the way, we're going to stand up to China over here. So we got to get the Philippines and South Korea and all of Australia. We got to get them ready to turn them into Ukraine 2.0 so we can throw them all at China and get them all killed too. Oh boy, big plans. And you can't even get out of the muck and the mire of Ukraine and the muck and the mire of the Middle East. I mean, you got to deal with the Middle East. But what's happening in Ukraine? You know what I'm saying? And that's why I'm saying the empire is crumbling. It's drowning in the Red Sea and it's crumbling in the rubble of Gaza, because before you even get there, which is disastrous, you tangled yourself up on Russia's border, a powerful world power. You started a proxy war against Russia that you couldn't possibly win, and your allies are lunatics. They're delusional lunatics. Look at Keir Starmer and Macron. They're delusional lunatics, and they are virtually unarmed. You started a war in Ukraine. And what happened? I've been saying this for years. It's a garbage disposal for the Russians. It's an open garbage disposal. You know what it is? You throw your NATO weapons in and they'll be happy to blow them up and throw them away and dispose of them for you. That's what's happening. So for the last 3 years, you've been throwing NATO weapons to Russia, and Russia's been doing what you do in a garbage disposal. Blow them up. Throw some more in, they blow them up. Throw some more in, they blow them up. Put in mercenaries, they kill them. Use Ukrainian soldiers, they wipe out a generation. Oh, we got to go down to 25. They throw that generation in, mowed down. Okay, we're going down to 18. Throw that generation in, mowed down. What are you going to go down to? You're going to have kids rolling up in strollers next? They got women, whole women battalions, mow them down. You're throwing every generation of lives in Ukraine as though that's a valiant thing to do. We're standing up to Putin. What are we doing? We're just getting everybody in Ukraine killed. Remember Lindsey Graham, to the last Ukrainian? So you're over here mired in a war that a superpower finds existential. Trying to get out, ain't no way out, really. Ain't no real way out. Trump's like, hey, I'm going to get a deal. There's a level of diplomatic competence that's needed here, a very high level of diplomatic competence that's needed here. And right now, I just haven't seen the level of competence needed, because here's the bottom line. The U.S. and its allies are talking about negotiating, right? Let me tell you something. If you attack me and I get you down, I ain't negotiating, brother. I'll negotiate before you attack me. Okay, Garland, you got me backed up and cornered. Hey, man, I don't want no trouble. Well, I'll tell you what, Garland, we can negotiate. I'm ready to talk. I don't want to fight. I prefer not to fight. People can get killed. There could be knives. Somebody could shoot at somebody later. I'm going to do everything I can to avoid a conflict, right? I don't want any problems. You attack me. Now I got to fight. I ain't negotiating. If you get down, I'm finishing the fight. You should have started that before you started. I would expect if I got down, you'll probably stomp on my head. If I get you down, I'm stomping your friggin' head. I'm walking away from that fight, and you ain't if I win. And it's probably the other way around. At least that's what I'm going to think. You've attacked me physically. I'm going to think, if this guy gets me down, he's probably going to kill me. That's the way I'm fighting. That's how I'm fighting. I'm fighting that my life's on the line. Wouldn't you? Who wouldn't, right? If somebody assaults you, always fight like your life's on the line. That's what you got to be trained in, right? So here's my point. You attack Russia. They're fighting like their life's on the line. What are they going to negotiate? They got Ukraine down. They're going to stomp them into the ground. Now, they'll take an unconditional surrender. They've given you their list. These are the things that we want. Yeah, you don't have to give them to them, because they're going to get them. Putin said this. President Putin said this very early. I remember this. I covered it. He spoke with Macron. And in that discussion with old Macron, right, he said, I will achieve the goals of the special military operation either through diplomacy or force of arms. At that point, what's he really got to negotiate? Okay, we're going to negotiate. Maybe you won't get some things. Well, let me see. If I continue the war, I'll get them all. If I don't continue the war, I got to give some up to you. Yeah, nah. Let's just keep going. Imagine you got a lawsuit and you're going to court, and you know you're going to win. It's just going to take some time. And if you win, you're going to get $10 million if you win, right? And so they come to you and they say, we'll offer you $250,000. You're like, this suit could go on for 2 or 3 years, but I got 2 or 3 years. So you know what? 250,000. I'm staying in it. We're going to go to court because I know I'm going to win. For whatever reason, and your the defendant knows that you're going to win, and they're trying to bargain with you for under 10 million because they know you're suing them for 10 million, and they know you're going to get a minimum of 10 million, and you both know they're going to lose. They're going to lose. And new evidence has come out to show they got no chance to win it. You could take the 250,000, or you could just say, you know what? Nah, let's take it to court, see what happens. I know I'm going to win. So I'm going to win. You can come back and give me the full 10 million and we can shut it down early. But I'm not going to take less, because I'm going to get it. And I know if you want to give it to me now and save yourself 3 years of litigating and the legal fees for 3 years, fine. Other than that, give me the money now or later. That's up to you. That's where the Russians are. We can take what we want. So you give me the money now or later. Money in my hand, bro. We got a deal. If not, I'm getting it sooner or later. The U.S. empire has to just simply say, yeah, we kind of lost this one. Now, Trump wants to interpret the loss and say, no, Joe Biden did this, and put it all on Joe Biden. And the Russians said, fine, go ahead, we're willing to do that. I want 10 million, though. I don't care how you spend it. Put that money in my hand and we'll end this lawsuit early. That's where the Russians are, and I don't think they're going to bend. And the U.S. Trump's problem is not a deal with the Russians, but he can't get a deal with the Ukrainians. The zeal of the converted, right? The guy converts this man, and the man that he converted is a greater believer than he is. That's the way it always happened, right? You've converted. The U.S. spent all these years strengthening the Banderite, Russia-hating virtual cultural religion in Ukraine so they could get Ukraine set just right in a mental way to attack Russia, to make the Ukrainians true believers in Bandera, to hate Russians with everything they could possibly get so they could weaponize that hate against both the Ukrainians and the Russians. They would get the Ukrainians to hate Russia so bad that the Ukrainians would never realize they were going to get the damn all self killed because they were going against a country 26 and a half times bigger than they are. So instead, it was like, yes, sir, we're ready to fight the Russians. Perhaps you should think about that. Perhaps maybe that ain't a good idea. You're going to get crushed. No, we hate the Russians and we're superior. We're the Vanderites and we'll defeat the Russians. Why? Because the CIA brainwashed you into believing that. And now, guess what? The only way the U.S. can get a deal is if they actually denazify Ukraine themselves, and they're going to have to denazify Europe too, because those, have you looked at Ursula von der Leyen and Kaya Kallas and Annalena Baerbock, the Nazi princesses? Dude, I mean, you could put little pencil mustaches on them. They're all goose stepping all over creation themselves. Let's just say they're not the most reasonable people on earth. They're extreme fascists, and they hate the Russians, and they're every bit as deluded as the Kiev people. You've got deluded fascists in Kiev, deluded fascists in London, and all over Brussels, you name it. And now the U.S. set this mess up, and they can't get out of it. So my point is, you got a disaster, and you're feeding money still, Trump. You're feeding money, and you're feeding weapons into Ukraine, and you can't get out of it. Meanwhile, in your a fit of absolute brilliance and wisdom, you picked a fight with the Houthis. And now you're going to send all this stuff as if you're not bleeding out in Ukraine, bleeding out money, bleeding out your diplomatic initiatives and strength, bleeding out your literally physically bleeding out of war material, of military material. You're bleeding out over here. Ain't bad enough. You got a knife sticking in your gullet over here. You're bleeding out. And so you decide to go pick a fight now without even stopping the bleeding over here, which is what empires do. You're going to pick a new fight and you're bleeding. Perhaps you should stop. Perhaps you should go to the hospital. Perhaps you should dress your wounds right here. No. You're going to grab the knife yourself and jiggle it around. Hey, I ain't bleeding enough. We need to bleed some more. Now let's go over here and get in a fight. How stupid is that? But that's what empires do as they fall apart. And where do you go? What was the Suez crisis? When the same lunatics, the same idiots, the same warmongering fools that we're dealing with right now in Ukraine from Western Europe came upon the brilliant idea to go take the Suez Canal. They're going to go fight in the Suez Canal. And what did they do? Didn't work out well for them. They called the U.S. Hey, we need you to bail us out. We need you to be a backstop because we're getting our butts kicked. And the U.S. was like, yeah, I don't know. Probably not. And what did the U.S. do? It took the opportunity to take their empires. But while you're at it, since you're all screwed up now, we will like completely unload your empire and take full control of everything, your money and everything else, you suckers. The United States, these empires, these so-called colonial empires, like idiots. I mean, look at it right now. We'll go fight Russia. They have no weapons. They got no soldiers, but they're standing up to Russia with no weapons and no soldiers. That's just brilliant, isn't it? Stand up to Russia with well, guess what? They were just as smart back then. Nothing's changed if you're a Western European ruling elite. We're going to go to Suez and we're going to fight, which happens to be on the Red Sea. Isn't it amazing? The sea of death for empires, right? Isn't it interesting? The Red Sea, that's where you go to drown if you're an idiot empire. Right to the Suez. Heading to the U.S. isn't even making it to the Suez Canal. Halfway up, we're like, well, we're going to defend the Suez Canal. That's basically what we're doing, defending the Suez Canal in Israel. The Suez Canal. What is it about the Suez Canal that's where empires drown? I don't know, but that's where we are now. So I'll continue. So now, Trump, Mr. the Peacemaker, he called himself the Peacemaker, right? So apparently, what do we know? We know that what we're told, we don't know anything for sure. We don't know what happened for sure. What we are told is that this is, as I'm reading now, don't hold me to this. I don't know that this is true. This is my best understanding of things that I can do. And that is that apparently Netanyahu called Trump and said, hey, I want to start the killing again. Let's start this war again. And Trump, a guy who, remember Mr. Trump? Remember this? Oh, we've got to stop the killing. There's killing going on. The Russians are dying. Ukrainians are dying. All these people are dying. We must stop the killing. Okay. Sounds good. You showed empathy for these people, right? And I'm thinking, oh, he showed some empathy. What does that mean? Okay. Netanyahu called, hey, we got a bunch of men, women, and children. We're starving them, of course. We're starving them. That's what we do. We starve people to death. And they're kind of hungry and thirsty, of course. They're living in tents. And we'd like to just bomb them to pieces, set them on fire, slaughter them like, we'd like to do. We'd like to start slaughtering innocent people, machine gunning them, just slaughtering innocent people randomly and claiming that we're fighting a war. Say, what do you think? And as I understand it, Trump's reaction was, make your move, brother. That's now. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but my understanding is that Netanyahu asked Trump, and Trump said, go ahead and move. Somebody, if I'm wrong, send me a link. If I'm wrong, let me know. Email me, whatever the case may be, put it in the chat. But that is my understanding, that Trump, the guy who allegedly, ostensibly talked as though he was showing empathy in Ukraine, basically, all right, go ahead. Now, there is something that supports that, even whether he did or didn't do it. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Trump didn't do it or did, whatever, but let's say he didn't. It's going on. He knows what's happening. I know what's happening. Now, the Houthis then say that's wrong. A lot of people would agree with them. Slaughtering, dropping weapons and gigantic 2,000-pound bombs on men, women, and children, people, innocent civilians. You don't even have, a military, whatever. That's wrong. Okay. So what does Trump say? The Houthis are going to try to influence them, shall we say. Think about, what are the Houthis doing? Number one, they believe they're doing their duty to God. Number two, they believe it's a moral duty. Number three, they believe that it's a legal duty under international law. And what do they say? We're going to fire some weapons, some bombs at the Israelis, which they're doing, missiles. Number two, we're going to do a economic blockade on the Red Sea, and we're going to hurt them economically. But it's not going to be random. Look, if your ship's going to help Israel, you can't go. If you're not, you can go. So it's not random. And the U.S. and Brits attacked, and they said, okay, U.S. and England, your ships can't go. And then we'll fight. So the U.S. says, well, yeah, we'll bomb you. And Israel's go, well, and the Yemenis, because the U.S. is like, we'll bomb you. And Yemen's like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, we didn't see that coming. Oh, what a shock. You're going to bomb us. Well, never had that happen before. Get out of here. We're going to do it. Let's fight. Let's dance. That's what the Yemen's basically saying to the U.S. And apparently there was something went out to the Yemenis that the U.S. is sending another aircraft carrier group and 35 more ships to confront the Yemenis. And the Yemen's answer was, thank you. Well, we'll welcome them. That was their answer. We're sending more ships to fight you. Thank you very much. We will welcome them. And I think you know what they mean when they say we will welcome them. So what we're looking at is, we're looking at Donald Trump now saying, look, remember the whole thing, Genocide Joe thing, where what little party the U.S. had, the Democrats had left, whatever they had that they were calling a party, it came unraveled as a result of what was happening in Israel, in the Middle East, right? The party came unraveled. As I've said before, the Democrats they can't talk about the things that caused them to lose. One of them was COVID. There were a lot of people unhappy with a lot of COVID policies that wouldn't come back. And the other one was censorship. That didn't help. That hurt a lot of people unhappy with that. Last but not least, probably, in fact, the one that had the biggest effect was, I could just say foreign policy in general, but particularly the grotesque nature of the massacre in Gaza and throughout Lebanon. That just, a lot of people said, I'm gone and I ain't coming back, right? There's a term, you might have heard this before. I had a caller on my radio show last night, and he said, oh yeah, basically there's two bad parties, but you got to pick one. And I said, no, I don't. He said, no, I actually don't. And I said, have you ever heard the term deal breaker? I said a deal breaker. I use whatever. I mean, this is an easy. I always use this because this is an easy analogy. Guys in a bar, young guys in a bar, looking for the woman of his dreams. He meets a woman, and she says, "Well, let me tell you a little bit." She likes him. She says, "Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I like walking on beaches, of this, blah blah, whatever." Right? He's thinking, "Great." Oh, I like fishing. He's thinking, "Oh, I like fishing. Wow, a woman that likes fishing." He hears everything that he likes, and he's like, "I think I might find her." He has visions of 2.5 kids in a minivan. Oh, life is going to be good. He's met the woman of his dreams. And then she goes, "Oh, I left out one thing." And he's like, "What's that?" She goes, "Well, about once a month on a Saturday night, I got a chainsaw and I go out and kidnap somebody and I saw him to pieces. My hobby is I'm a chainsaw killer." And he says, "Deal breaker, deal breaker." Everything else looked good, but I married a chainsaw killer. Right? Deal breaker. And she says, "Well, I mean, nobody's perfect. Come on. I mean, we all have our weaknesses. I chainsaw somebody in half every now and then. Come on. I mean, you got to give me the benefit of the doubt." And he says, "I thought about it, but that's going to be a deal breaker." And he leaves. Right? Nah. And she's like, "Darn, I'll never meet anybody." Okay. Here's my point that I made to the guy. For a lot of people, the genocide was a deal breaker. There were a lot of people that said, "I don't like the Republicans or Trump or whoever, whatever. Oh, I love the woke stuff and censorship is great and blah, blah, blah." They were 100% on board with the Democrats, God forbid. But they finally ran into a deal breaker and they said that's genocide, right? Okay, so the Democratic Party, in my opinion, came unraveled. Right now, the Democratic Party is polling, true story. I just did a video on 27%. They got two polls, CBS News and NBC News. I don't remember which one is which, but I do remember this. One of them's 29%. One of them's 27%. You ain't going to do real good in the midterms. Your party is in deep and serious trouble and they don't know what to do. But one of the reasons is because they can't admit ever that Gaza was one of the chief reasons that they won. There are numerous reasons, but Gaza was a big part of it. And a lot of people ain't coming back because of that. They can't talk about that. They can't admit that, right? Okay. Now Trump's about to get, he didn't learn anything apparently, because notwithstanding all of the rhetoric Trump came in about me and Joe Peace guy, right? Joe Peacemaker. He's taken over a brutal warmongering empire. He's taking over a war machine. The U.S. empire now is nothing more than a war machine. That's all it is. The money goes to war. Why is it that we, as they say, can't have nice things? They're like, we've got to lay off all of these people at the Department of Agriculture and Department of Interior. People who, I don't know, they come to work every day and they do something that needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done. I'm opposed to laying them off. These are working class people. And you're going to lay these people off, right? I'm opposed to it. Now, here's what they say. We got to save money because it's too expensive to run this empire. Really? How much does it cost to send a carrier group and 35 ships with all the weaponry and all the things it takes to go fight Yemen for an indeterminate amount of time? Because you said we're going to fight until they stop. And Yemen said we ain't stopping until Israel stops. So how much is it going to cost? How much does 900 bases cost? How about if instead of laying off everyday people, granted, great, you shut down USAID and National Endowments for Democracy. You know why you shut them down? Because they don't work anymore. Because the old regime change starts some protests and then make them violent and use it to overthrow the government like Maidan. It doesn't work anymore. Why do they want to get rid of Voice of America and Radio Free Liberty? Because they're not working anymore. I don't think they're getting rid of them because they're like, we don't want to do regime change anymore. No, because they don't work as effective regime change tools. And why are you wasting your money on ineffective regime change tools? That's why to get rid of them. But you want to lay a bunch of people off to save money? I don't believe that. I don't believe you're not. Look, as I've said time and again, you watch what happened. The U.S. military budget comes out. When the U.S. military budget comes out, it will increase by more than the amount that they, quote, save by firing all these federal employees. Number one. And as I said, USAID and National Endowments for Democracy, good, defund them. Great. If you can do something for the employees, that's great. But look, those warmongering machines got to go. But the people that, like all these people that work for national parks, people that work for hey, we're laying off all the national parks people. How are national parks going to work? People at the Nuclear Energy Commission. We don't need all of those. Screw it. I don't know if you need them or not, but in my opinion, they're working class people. And how many good jobs are they? What are they going to do? They ain't going to go out and get a good job like they have. The government, look, the government is going to spend this money. Don't think for 1 second that they're going to save money on the salaries of everyday working class people because they fired them, and that money is somehow going to be used for the betterment of things. They're printing more money every year than that. They're going to take that money, and meanwhile, we'll go to Mars. Oh, really? How about instead of what the hell are we going to Mars? What instead of going to Mars, some folly lark for the billionaires is to go to Mars. We're going to put people on Mars. No. How about the people on the earth here that need to eat and don't need a war? You can't get peace on the earth and you want to go to Mars. How screwed up is that? But as I continue, so we got a country that an empire that at home we got to fire our workers and throw them out into destitution because hey, that's a great thing to do, and we'll save that money because we can use it for war because that's all they use it for. Hey, if they keep the people, that's a little less money they'll be able to give to the Defense Department and to the war machine. That's what I say to Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, because that's where it's all going. It's a fraud. The richest man in the world. Yes, we're doing this to save you $1. If you wanted to save us $1, dude, why don't you get rid of those multi-billion-dollar contracts that's going into your filthy little stinking greedy pockets? This is what the MAGA people voted for? No, it's not really, because Trump lied to them. Because Trump said to them, I'm going to be a peacemaker. Okay, how's that going so far? Trump said to them, I'm going to stand up for the working class. Yeah, okay. And now, of course, you know what's coming. They will increase the Pentagon budget. Trump says, yes, we're going to drop it by 8%. I bet you this. I bet you they increase it by more than 8%. The whole thing is, but this is an empire. It's not about Trump. He took the wheels of an empire. If you give me a bulldozer to drive, I'm driving a bulldozer. I can't pretend like I'm driving a big wheel or a tricycle or a bicycle or a unicycle. I'm driving a bulldozer. He took the reins of a bulldozer. And what does a bulldozer do? It dozes things over like a bull. That's why they call it a bulldozer. He took the reins. He took the steering wheel of a brutal war machine. And they're going to do brutal war. That's who they are. That's what a brutal war machine does. And Trump knew it. And now, what does he do? What does he do? He is now entered. He ain't been there. He's like, I remember Trump. I was there for 4 weeks. I didn't, quote, start a war. 4 years. All the other people started a wars. Look at me. I didn't start a war. I'm the only one that didn't start a war. Then he comes back. What about now, Trump? Let's go. I missed that last time. And he's threatening Iran. I didn't start a war last time, so hey, I got to make up for all of those wars I didn't start. Let's start with I don't know. So let's start with 2 wars. We'll start with one that will go on forever, and we'll never be able to win. And we look immoral and unjust because they're pushing back against the genocide, and it's the poorest country in the world. We'll bomb them, and of course, they're going to knock the crap out of us back. Then we'll go to Iran, a war that we're going to probably lose. Will it go nuclear? I don't know what'll happen. And let's be honest, if I'm Iran. If the U.S. attacks me. Now, what have I done to you? Nothing. But if the U.S. attacks me, I'm going to build a nuclear weapon. I'm going to build a nuclear weapon if the U.S. attacks me. Why? I'm going to have one ready. If the U.S. attacks me and starts a war with me, I'm going to have a nuclear weapon prepared. And I'm going to have a conventional war. And if the U.S. one day says, okay, we're losing, let's say if the war starts and the U.S. then is getting their butt kicked, because my prediction would be U.S. starts a war with Iran, right? And that effectively ends Trump is saying, I'm going to end my presidency, because it would effectively end his presidency. The first thing that would happen would be the closing of the Straits of Hormuz, right? And let me show you something. Right now. Let's do this. It's always good to look at, when you're having a discussion, to actually look at what you're up against, right? Let's take a peep. Okay, I'm going to bring up this map and let me show you why this whole thing is important. Let's look at this map in its entirety. Okay. This is the Red Sea, right? Okay. Down here, we got Yemen, right? At the bottom, you see Yemen? Let's go here. Let's take a look at this. And this is important. So you got Yemen. This is the Red Sea, right? And if you look down, it's very, very skinny entrance to the. See how skinny that entrance is? The straits of, that's the Bab al-Mandab Strait, a very, very skinny, skinny little strait, which means there's not a lot of distance. There's a little island there. You see what I mean? Bab al-Mandab Straits, which means it's not easy to get through there. If Yemen don't want you to go there, not much room, they can plaster anything that goes between there, right? So they close that in, right? And now, of course, if we look here, you see China and you see Asia and all of that over here, India. So things that come from the Asian region here, right? You want to go to Europe or whatever, right? You're going to go through here. You're going to, boom, you're going to go up the Red Sea. You're going to come out, right up here is the Suez Canal, right? You're going to come out the Suez Canal. See, there's the Suez Canal. And when you come out the other side, boom, look where you are. You got the Mediterranean here, and voila, there's Europe, right? Okay, so this is a very important route, because if you don't go through there, guess what? If you're going from Asia, boop, you got to go all the way around Africa. And that's a lot longer, a lot more expensive. I think it takes like 13 more days. And of course, that means a lot more fuel. That means it's much more expensive for things going back and forth between Asia and, Europe, especially, right? Now, let's go back to this and let's just add Iran up into this mix, right? So you've got that. You've seen that, right? This is the Gulf of Aden. Right? You got to come up the Gulf of Aden. So that's one way to get to Europe, right? Okay, but there's something else, another issue. So Yemen, who's an ally of Iran, closes the Red Sea. Very dangerous place to be. Yemen can hit you with missiles. Okay, let's continue. So we've already seen that Yemen can close down the Red Sea, right? Problematic. Okay, but let's just say there was a war with Iran. Let's go to the other side, right? We're here. This is important. So we got, here's where you go to get to Europe. You go up the Red Sea and out the Suez Canal. Now let's go over here. The Straits of Hormuz. What is the Straits of Hormuz? See, there's the Gulf of Oman. This is the Straits of Hormuz that is controlled by Iran. Iran's got islands here. They got all kind of anti-shipping missiles that can mine it. They've got a huge naval presence right there. Why is that important? Well, inside the Persian Gulf, look what we got here. We got Iraq, and there's Basra, right? So we got all of this oil coming out of Iraq. We got all of this oil coming out of Kuwait. We got all of this oil coming out of Saudi Arabia, right? And what else do you have? You've got Qatar, lots of oil and gas coming out of Qatar. Oh, what else do we got? United Arab Emirates, lots of oil and gas, right? Like 30% of the world's oil and gas every day comes out of the Persian Gulf and goes through the Straits of Hormuz, right? And off it goes to the world, something like 30% of the world. And the Straits of Hormuz controlled by Iran. So you start a war with Iran. Okay, the United States can't control. Look at that. You see that? You see those two, the Red Sea on one side and the Straits of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf on the other side, right? So what we're looking at is this, two of the most important waterways in the world. The United States, let's go back here. Stage. There we go. Got it figured out. Okay, now where was I? So why is that all important? Because here's my point. Would somebody say they can't hear me? Can people hear me now? Can't see you, can't hear you. Am I back? I guess I'm back. Okay, there we go. I'm back. Sorry about that. I had a little problem here where I don't know where the hell I was, but I'm back. So as I was saying, that was, I was adding the Red Sea and taking the Red Sea out. And, sometimes when you add and take the Red Sea out, things can get a little hairy. But here's my point. I forgot what my point is. Oh, here's my point. One of the things Donald Trump has talked about is economics, right? He's got this great economic plan. I don't actually agree with it. I don't think it's going to work, but that is his economic plan, and he thinks it's going to work, right? We're going to go back to the days of whoever, the Woodrow Wilson, whoever the hell, I don't know, one of these presidents in the early 1900s, and boy, things are really going to straighten up when I go back to this. These things that worked when we were like a mostly agrarian society. I have a feeling they won't, but it doesn't matter. Trump has a plan. Dragging us into war with Yemen is going to put a hitch in that plan. Little hitch in that plan, but a hitch in the plan nevertheless. But if you go to war with Iran, let's say Iran does nothing but close the Straits of Hormuz. And of course they say, well, now, you know what? We're really going to load Yemen up with weapons. We're gonna arm Yemen to the friggin' teeth with weapons. For all we know, they could be armed to the teeth with weapons now, just waiting for stuff to break out. In fact, if I were Iran, I'd be loading them up. I would be arming Yemen to the friggin' teeth, saying, "Look, if something breaks out, you better be ready." And what do you think Yemen's going to do? Oh no, we don't want to get involved in it. They are itching for a fight, dude. They're itching for it. Let me at them, pull the reins off. Let me go. So if I'm them, I'm loading them up, saying they can't do nothing in the Red Sea now. I'll give you even more. If I'm the Russians, I might be doing that too, to be quite frank, and the Chinese also. Not saying they are. I'm just saying if I were, I'd be considering making your friggin' life a little more miserable. Oh, you're going to give ATACMS to Ukraine, are you? Hey, we're going to provide targeting and missiles for Ukraine and drones for them to hit deep inside of Russia. If I'm Russia, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just saying, if something breaks off in the Red Sea, an even swap ain't no swindle, brother. An even swap ain't no swindle. I'm giving everything. I'm loading up Onyx missiles, S-300s. Oh man, the Iranians, they got a lot of stuff, but they'll have more. The Yemenis, they'll have what is it? Electronic warfare, you name it. I'm loading them and arming them to the teeth and say, you know what? Turnaround's fair play, buddy. Have you been arming Ukraine and now you in a fight? What do you think I'm going to do? Sitting on my hands, waiting for you to win or lose? Nope. If you're going to tip the scales against me, I'm tipping the scales against you. So if I'm the Russians and the Chinese, dude, I am loading, especially Yemen, I am loading these people up with weapons. Fire at will. Let them fly, right? If I'm Iran, this is the truth. I mean, let's be honest about it. I'm probably going to build a nuclear weapon. If the U.S. attacks me, I can have a nuclear weapon within days. I'm going to build one. I'm going to have some nuclear weapons. And at some point, first of all, what's going to happen? Nothing else happens. The first thing that's going to happen is what? They're going to close the Straits of Hormuz. 30% of the oil in the world. It's over. So, and what are the Yemen going to say? They're going to say, we've said some ships could pass through. Chinese and Russian ships, you can pass through. Because that's what the Yemen always say. The rest of you, I don't care who they are. No other ships go through. So they're going to close the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. That's done. Both sides, as I've shown you, the Persian Gulf on one side, Red Sea on the other. What's going to happen? Iran's going to close the Straits of Hormuz and close the Persian Gulf, and 30% of the world's oil stops flowing. How do you think that'll affect the United States economy, the Western economy, and all the rest of the economies? Now, interestingly enough, who'll benefit? Cui bono, Sonny Bono, I don't know, whatever, Bono. Who benefits? Russia sells a little bit of oil, don't they? Russian oil ain't going to be slowed up. And by the way, Do you think if a Russian oil tanker goes through the Red Sea that, or wants to go through the Straits or wherever it wants to go, guess what? You think the Houthis are going to be firing at Russian oil tankers? No, they'll say Russian oil tankers, you can go through all you want. Now the rest of you sons of bitches, we got a hypersonic missile for you if you try to go through. So what happens if 30% of the oil, almost pretty much, let's just say a third of the world's oil supply dries up like that? Number one is the Russians make a fortune. The price of oil goes to $400 a barrel, and the Russians got plenty of oil, and they're selling it like, and everybody's screaming to the Russians, please, can I get some oil? So for starters, the Russians will make money like nobody in this world has ever made money on oil. Yeah, the U.S. will make some money on oil, but they'll have problems because, number one, internally, people will be saying, why is gas now $15 a gallon? And I thought eggs and things were expensive now. If diesel fuel is $18 a gallon, let's just say this, and everything you buy in the market, everything you buy everywhere, you go to the grocery store, everything is brought there by trucks that have burned diesel fuel, and they're now paying $18 a gallon. You know what? There's a term for that: depression. It'll make 1929 look like a sudden, just a bubble. Now, that's best case scenario. Let's go one further. Iran starts hitting U.S. bases and sinking U.S. ships. And Iran says, you know what? Tell you what I'm going to do. And the U.S., well, we'll hit you with this, that, and the other. And Iran says, we are going to destroy everything. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, all of the oil infrastructure is going to catch a hypersonic missile. We're going to wipe out, first of all, effectively, to some extent, when they shut off the Persian Gulf, they're going to get rid of a lot of it, but maybe there's some pipelines, some other ways you can get it off overland, not enough to make a difference. But if the U.S. gets too froggy and hits Iran too hard, what is Iran going to do? They'll say, they've already said that. They said, we'll flatten all the oil infrastructure in the Gulf and we will nuke your economy. So now, guess what? Donald Trump is 4 months in, and his country is in the greatest depression that it has ever seen in its history. Ever. And there ain't no way out. 4 months in, Mr. Make America Great Again, the peacemaker, has dragged us into wars that have obliterated the economy, to use a Donald Trump. Now, let me say this also. Let me add this. Donald Trump said recently, hey, Iran better do this, or I'm giving them 2 months. If they don't do it within 2 months, then I'm going to take them out, and then they're going to find out, and they're going to be held accountable and all this crap. Now, a lot of people flipped out, and I had to do this to talk about that, but I got to add this to it. In the same way that 1 week Donald Trump says, hey, Zelensky's a dictator, and a week later they're like, didn't you call Zelensky a dictator? He's like, I don't remember calling him a dictator. What, a dictator? Nah, I need people use word. Come on, you know, a green suit wearing guy, but I mean, dictator, nah. So Donald Trump this week is, Iran better do this or else they're gonna get it. We're gonna hold them accountable, blah, 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 blah. A week from now, Donald Trump will be like, what? They're going to be like, well, you said you were going to attack Iran. He'll be like, attack Iran? Me? I don't recall saying attacking Iran. No, come on. That would wake by their economy. Nah, attack Iran? Who would do that? What kind of lunatic would do that? I don't recall. It will not shock me if a week from now, Donald Trump doesn't not only say he's not going to attack Iran, deny that he ever said it in the first place. What isn't it interesting? I mean, think about this guy. A couple of weeks ago, he says, I'm talking to the Russians and they're going to help me get a deal with Iran. Well, you can't get a deal with the Russians, but they're going to help you get a deal. Well, at least you get a deal with somebody, right? And then we can't get a deal with the Russians, but they're going to help us get a deal with Iran. And then we're going to give Iran an ultimatum. You better take the deal that we give you and negotiate with us within 2 months or we're going to attack you. Well, wait a minute. That's not a negotiation, is it? Is it a negotiation to say, if you don't take the deal that I give you within 2 months, I'll kill you? That's not negotiating. It's like armed robbery. I got a gun on you. The problem, again, this is when you bluff like that, you got to be able to back it up. And if the person knows you can't back it up, they're going to punch your ticket. Like the Western Europeans, Putin better do what we tell him to do, or we're going to send in troops. And Putin's like, yeah, really. I'm horribly frightened of that threat, that there's going to be a bunch of troops coming from Europe and England. I mean, I can count the troops on one hand that England can send, and still have enough fingers left to make a fist. Get out of here, England. You're bluffing. I can see you're bluffing. The world knows you're bluffing. Don't bluff. As they say, don't bluff Beijing and don't march on Moscow. Isn't that what international geopolitics say historically? So they're bluffing Putin, and he's like yawning. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. Oh boy. The Brits are going to send their mighty army. Oh, well, we're scared of that, but we ain't giving you what you want. All right. You're going to send your mighty army, Britain. I don't know how they're going to get here. Your ships don't work. Maybe they'll take a train. Maybe they'll just take, I don't know, a commercial aircraft. They can buy a ticket like anybody else and get off in Kyiv. So I guess that's the way the Brits are going to, like, their air force is pretty much null and void. Their ships don't work. I guess they'll catch commercial aircraft. They'll send you know, as small as their military is, they won't need to buy a lot of tickets to send them. You know, there'll be like a small crowd. It'll look like a small gathering in Kyiv as they get together to go die on the front lines. So whatever the case may be, my point being the same. It's a bluff, and everybody knows it's a bluff. When it comes to attacking Iran, it better be a bluff. It better be a bluff. It has to be a bluff. And with Trump, it wouldn't surprise me. But because you can't defeat Yemen. You lost to Afghanistan. You got your butt kicked by a half-assed group of guys who really, they got toughness. You know what they got? They're tougher than you are. That's all they got. They're short on weapons. They're short on a lot, but they're strong on heart. That's what these people got. And you lost to people just because they were tougher. You outgunned them for all you were worth. But in the end, you went to their house to fight, and they sent you home limping. And now you've gone to the Red Sea and you're sending more people. They're going to send you home limping. If you look, if you put ships in the range of the Houthis, they will try their damnedest, bestest to sink them. And what happens if they do? Then what are you going to do? How are you going to, where do you take it? Oh, we're going to attack the poorest country in the world. How bad does it look? So what are you going to do? You're going to up the attacks? They ain't ever stopping. And now what have you done? Are you going to put troops on the ground? Well, they sunk a ship. We're going to put troops on the ground. And Yemen's going to jump up and sing, finally, hooray, we get to fight them. And you know what? There'll probably be Muslims all over the Middle East saying, thank God the Yankees are finally on the ground and they're ready to fight. They'll be all trying to go to Yemen so they can pick up a gun, a rock, a stick, anything they can. They'll say the time has come that we can finally have jihad on the ground against these sons of bitches. And we're going to get our get backs now. Do you really want to put troops on the ground there? What are you going to do? So you're in a bad situation there. Now, you got Iran. I've already been over that. To start a war with Iran, Iran has missiles everywhere. And what I heard Alistair Crook talk about this one time, and Alistair Crook knows his stuff. And Alistair Crook said, look, in the mountains, in places all over the place, throughout the mountains in various places, the Iranians have missile sites that are deep in the mountains, and there's lots of them, and they're spread all over the place, and you can never stop them or get them all. And these mountains these people are remote, and they have remote access to channels of communication, and they have their assignments. And what is their assignment? If, in fact, at some time, the Americans or the Israelis, say the Israelis throw some nukes at Tehran and kill all the leaders and kill everybody, and they nuke Iran, the plan for these various sites out in the mountains, who have literally hundreds of thousands of large ballistic missiles, is to start throwing them in Israel. And if they start throwing them in Israel, you know they're going to start throwing them at every U.S. base. They're going to start throwing them at every U.S. At the infrastructure. And their plan is don't stop throwing them at Israel until you run out. And this could go on for months, if not years. And there's nothing you can do. So what are you going to do? Now, let me ask you this. If Israel or the US threw some nukes, and we know that the only reason Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons is because they don't want them. Don't you think if you threw a nuclear weapon at Iran, that they would probably quickly assemble one and throw one back at you? At least one. At that point, what do they have to lose? You've gone all out. We're going to destroy Iran. At that point, once you fire a nuke at them, you've got a problem. Because what happens now is there going to be nuclear fallout all over the Middle East, and nobody's ever going to be ever the oil out of there. Maybe after 25,000 years, we can do that. You're going to turn the oil fields into Chernobyl. At that point, again, here's my point. Here's my point, Donald Trump. How's your presidency looking, bro? How's your empire looking, brother? How's your plan to go confront China, to add the Canada and whatever the hell else, and to put tariffs on people? How's all that looking then? It's all gone. All up in smoke. If Donald Trump is stupid enough he's riding this empire. If he's stupid enough to ride this empire drag it into a war with Yemen, he's taking it down the road of destruction. And, here's the bottom line. Forget Trump, because Biden was taking us down the road of destruction just the same way. I suspect that if Kamala had went in, the same thing they were looking for, we'd have gotten nuked with it. I'll put it like this. I don't think we'd make it to August. I don't think we'd make it till fall. If Kamala had won, I literally don't think we could make it till fall. I think that the neocons had decided that they were going to up the ante against Russia and who knows what. And before you know it, nukes would have started flying and we'd all been dead we wouldn't make it probably before June, July, August. We'd all been dead if Kamala wins, right? No doubt, my question in my mind. So now Trump is in. And I said this before Trump went in. I said, here's the difference between Trump. He's a different kind of neocon. The thing about Trump is this. The Biden neocons were crazy. They wanted to fight with the biggest people they could get. They wanted a fight with Russia and China, and they didn't care if it went nuclear. They just wanted to fight because they were insane sociopaths, right? Trump doesn't want to fight with Russia and China because he's like, they're too powerful. We can't fight them, and we'd lose, and it'd go nuclear. It'd be World War III. We'd all die. But he wants to beat the hell out of the little ones. That's the difference in Trump. Trump doesn't want a big fight, but he doesn't have trouble getting involved in all of these little ones all over the place. And so now Trump, 8 weeks in, has started his first war. He is officially a president. He's officially the people of the empire, the neocons and the imperial blob is like, well, we got Trump where we need him to be. All of this business about I'm the only one that's in the start of war is out the window. And so, as far as I'm concerned, the U.S. empire, in the same way that the Brits and the French, etc., collapsed their empire in the Suez Canal, which is off what? The Red Sea, right? The Gulf of Suez to the Red Sea to the Suez. I mean, the Red Sea to the Gulf of Suez and into the Suez Canal and out into the Mediterranean, right? The same, isn't it interesting that the same area of the world, to me, is ending the U.S. empire? It's dying in the same place by trying. And what are they saying? The Suez Canal was about what? It's always with empire controlling the international shipping lanes, right? So you can control international shipping because it's always about money. The U.S., what did they say? We've got the Red Sea. It's about navigation, freedom of navigation. What is it? It's not about freedom of navigation. It's about the U.S. the U.S. empire being able to control the lanes of navigation around the world. One of the things that you got to understand here is the Houthis have done something to disgrace the United States. The U.S. military, its Navy, is supposed to be able to control the shipping lanes around the world. That we can tell you, ultimately, we can block off your shipping lanes if we choose, or we can keep them open if we choose. Either one. We can block them off, and nobody can block them off but us. What the Houthis have done is disgrace the United States by showing that a country with an advantageous geographical position and with current available technology can defeat the U.S. in its quest to control the shipping lanes. The big humiliation here is they have revealed a weakness in the U.S. empire, a chink in their armor, as people say. Because the U.S. empire, what is this Navy about? Two things. We can shut down any important shipping lane if we want, but we can keep any important shipping lane open. Well, you know what? We're half there now. Yeah, maybe we can cut some off. I don't even know about that anymore. But one damn thing for sure, it's obvious we can't keep one open. It's obvious that if even a poor country with an advantageous geographical position sitting right there at the Bab el-Mandab Strait at the mouth of the Red Sea can say nobody comes in this Red Sea unless we say they come in. They have challenged the power of the empire, effectively challenged the power of the empire, right? And the empire has to demonstrate, no, we still rule the seas, except we don't. And guess what? Here's what I keep saying about the empire. I'm going to finish up here. What we keep finding about the empire is everything that it does to try to save itself, to try to reestablish itself, everything that it does only makes it crumble faster. And the things that it's doing, the horrific moral acts that it is doing in Gaza are causing the U.S. empire to crumble. As the buildings crumble in the rubble of Gaza, the U.S. empire crumbles in the rubble of Gaza. Everything the U.S. is doing in the Red Sea to try to demonstrate our dominance is demonstrating that we don't have dominance. So the U.S. empire is drowning in the Red Sea. It's crumbling in the ruins of Gaza and drowning in the Red Sea, the same area that took down the Brits. One could argue the French, but the Brits for sure. U.S. is in the same vicinity and is getting the same treatment. And right now, there's no way out for Trump. See, he trapped himself. He picked a fight that he can't possibly win. He picked a fight with Yemen, and he's like, I'm not going to stop. They're not going to stop, and they're going to keep fighting. So what are you going to do, Donald Trump? You're going to be in office now for, you barely started your 4 years. So you got your whole 2 weeks, you got your whole 4 years. Are you going to be at war with Yemen for 4 straight years? Because Yemen's willing to fight that. It's going to be very, very expensive to do that. And what happens when you're going to send all these targets and Yemen's going to hit them? And then what? And then what? Can you just walk away from a loss? This is boneheaded, but this ain't Trump. It ain't just Trump. This is the U.S. empire. This is what empires do. What, when the Brits and had their Suez crisis, was that, can people name who was in charge then and who's made that mistake? A lot of people don't know who was in charge at that point. They just know that that was the British Empire doing what empires do where they do them. Diet in Suez. And years from now, people won't necessarily blame it on Trump. They'll look at what the U.S. empire has been doing since, say, 2000, since 1991, when the Soviet Union fell, and they will see, wow, look at the empire was going down, 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 down. Obama, Clinton, you name them, they just kept going down, 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 and they will see the deterioration of the empire until it finally hit rock bottom. And they'll remember who was president when that happened. Who was president in 2008? I don't remember. Who was president when this happened? They may remember the last one, but they'll look at it and they'll say, yeah, every president was the president of the U.S. empire, and they were heading downhill. So let's keep a watch. Thanks a lot, everybody. Numero uno. Follow me on Rumble, Rockfin, etc. Number 2. 1,180 people. We need 1,180 likes. And please, everybody, share this on all your social media platforms. Last but not least, if you can afford it, please help out the channel. We got Patreon. We need some more Patreon people, but you can also go to Buy Me a Coffee, and that's great. You just put buymeacoffee.com. It says, how much? $5, whatever, per coffee. How many do you want? Doesn't matter. And underneath, it says, do you want to make that monthly, just like Patreon? Of course, we got PayPal. We got Cash App. That's it. Okay, look at it, come back. So whatever you can do, but don't worry if you can't afford it. That's fine. A lot of people are struggling. Just share this on all your social media platforms. Thanks a lot, everybody. Let me look and see if we got any super chats or anything like that, because sometimes we get those, and I want to make sure that if there's, I don't really see any, but if there's any super chats, I want to make sure. Oh, by the way, we got some new members. Appreciate that. You can click on that. Look at that. Thanks a lot, Jay. Jay became a member. Wow, that's awesome. Thanks a lot. We got some new members. Really appreciate that. We always want new members. And, you know, you can decide how much you want as a member, $3, $4, $5, $7, whatever you choose a month as a member. Also, I got a Substack. We got some more members, and we have slowly. Sparky, great work, Garland. The Sparkster, he's always in the house. Thanks a lot, Sparky. Sparky was gone for a while. I think that's it. I'm looking. We're going to go to Rockfin next and take a look and see, is there anyone else on Rockfin? All right. On Rockfin, what do we got? 33 watching. Thank you. And we're going to go to Rumble and see if there's any Rumble rants. No Rumble rants. No rants on Rumble. Thank you very much. And all right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Certainly appreciate everybody taking time out of the busy schedule to hang out with me, to spend a little time on Saturday. I thought it was important to say this stuff. I guess it's important. I don't know. It must be. I said it. You all have a good day. Thank you for subscribing. Oh, lots of new subscribers. I got like 467 new subscribers in the last couple of days. I don't know. Maybe is that the Galloway effect? Maybe yes, maybe no. But I enjoy doing this, and I appreciate everybody being part of the show. And it's important now that social media is growing. Someone has Free Mahmoud Khalil. I better put that up. Free Mahmoud Khalil. Yes, sir, for sure. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'm out.